Week 17 of the NBA 2021-22 season was trade week, and it was a busy one. This is Run It Back, NBA Week in Review, Trade Edition.
The voice of the fan. Drop a bounce pass, throw down the rim rocker. Lay up off the glass, right past the shot blocker. I follow through like Kobe's money, you can cash it. For news on LA hoops, come over to Beach Basket. Up-to-date sports, post-game reports, debates and play-by-play coming straight off the court. The voice of the fan making noise, causing havoc. Zone a man up, you can ask Peach Basket. The Peach Basket, coming soon on air. The Peach Basket, where the news begins. We're dropping news like we're in the stands. Creative views from the Aztec fans.
This is the show where we go coast to coast to talk to fans of the teams that made the biggest trades. Tonight, I'm excited to talk to Jack. He runs a very good LA Clippers Twitter account. JP to talk New Orleans Pelicans. Tom to talk Sacramento Kings. Akeem Evans to talk Philadelphia 76ers. And Brandon Wynn to talk Washington Wizards. Also be joined from time to time by Steve Persillo and Isaac Edelman of our partner site FL Teams as we break down one of the wildest NBA trade seasons ever. The moment we've been waiting for since September is finally here. In honor of the big game, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 56, is giving new customers 56-1 odds on either team. Bet just $5 and get $280 in free bets if your team wins. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use promo code TBPN and get 56-1 odds on either team. Bet just $5 and get $280 in free bets if your team wins. That's promo code TBPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 56 and sponsor of Run It Back NBA Week in Review. All right, our recap of the wildest NBA trade season continues as we drop the pin in the state capital of California, Sacramento, and welcome Tom Witt. Tom runs the Sacktown Crown Twitter account. The Kings acquired Domantas Sabonis, Justin Holiday, and Jeremy Lamb from the Indiana Pacers in exchange for Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson. Tom, I'm going to go ahead and bring you in. Thank you so much. I've got to say, I started this site, the Peach Basket, in an effort to be a voice for the fan. I had a great time writing at one time for Bleacher Report. I didn't find great opportunities like what I had. So we started this site. We've got a great group of contributors, about 50, but we didn't have a Sacramento Kings contributor. And I hated that because this was, to me, an interesting trade. And so I reached out to Twitter and was really, really grateful to have Tom say that he'd love to come on. And that's exactly what our site exists for. We are voice of the fan. Tom is a fan, runs a great account, great Kings fan. And I'm real excited to talk to you. And there's a lot to talk about. Let's start by asking the very simple question, Tom. What do you like about this pretty big trade in Sacramento?
Oh man, I like everything. The Sacramento Kings world, the Twitter world has been positive and loving this trade right here. There's a few aspects that I really like about it. Just the players that we got in. Sabonis is a franchise changer, especially with De'Aaron Fox next to him. The Kings had a great problem of having too many good point guards with De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Halliburton, and then the rookie Davion Mitchell. So I was sad to see Halliburton go, as he was one of my fan favorites and a great player, probably a future All-Star. But it was a necessary move for the Kings to make, just because they had not a lot of wing or big man depth. And Sabonis just kind of fills all of that. He can run up and down the floor. He averages 5 assists a game for a big man. Very smart. And he's already said that he wants to spend his career in Sacramento. And if you want to win over the Sacramento Kings fan base, Just say you like Sacramento and the Kings, and we'll be rabid for you. I would also say one of the biggest parts of the trade, honestly, was, as they say, addition by subtraction. Buddy Hield was a polarizing figure in Sacramento. He could go 5 for 6, in a row, hitting those threes and lighting up the fan base. And then he could dribble the ball off his foot 15 times and go 2 of 17 and really be a hindrance to the Kings trying to win. So I think just 2 aspects of this trades, the 2 trades, even the Marvin Bagley to Detroit for Trey Lyles, Josh Jackson, and then Dante DiVincenzo was added in there. So I think with the Kings getting some added wing depth with those guys that aren't Domantas Sabonis, and then getting Domantas Sabonis is big time. First All-Star in Sacramento since DeMarcus Cousins, and probably the best player on the team now. But the biggest thing, honestly, was I think getting rid of Buddy Hield and getting Marvin Bagley a change of scene as well. So I think that's just all around 9 out of 10 positives. The only negative is that we really loved Tyrese Halliburton. He loved it here, and he's probably going to be a star. But I love this trade. Kind of pushed the pace a little bit more, like the Kings have been talking about. Good change of culture in Sacramento.
Number one, I was real excited to hear how excited the Kings were about this trade. I think Sabonis is and I'm not putting him in the same category as Chris Webber, but I think he is that same type of player, cut from the same mold. And we all know what Chris Webber did in Sacramento. What I love about the Sacramento Kings is that fan base is so, we lost Tom, but that fan base is so passionate. They love their team. I'll never forget. This was, I don't know, decades ago, but I think it was Bobby Jackson. I might be wrong. Fell into the crowd and onto the lap of a lady that was watching the game, put his arm around her, ate some popcorn, and gave her a kiss on the cheek. I'll never forget. I don't know that could fly today, but that relationship that the Kings had with that fan base is special, and you don't have that a lot of places. You brought up that the biggest loss here is Halliburton, and that blew my mind, giving up on somebody so young with so much potential. And Tom, we heard you talk about his potential. I think that's the part that just is shocking to me. And I also heard you say play in. I'm gonna bring you back. I see that you're back. Hopefully a reboot worked. I gotta ask, and then I'll bring in Akeem and Steve. Are you guys thinking in Sacramento now that the play in is an option? Is that within reach for the Kings after this trade? Shoot. Well, I think we got the general consensus. Certainly enough to chat a little bit. Akeem, I'm going to bring you in. I'm going to bring Steve in. Maybe we talk amongst ourselves. Hopefully, Tom can get things worked out. I know how frustrating technical difficulties are. He dropped again. Shoot. All right, Akeem, let me start with you because I know you researched this trade for your Indiana Pacers article. It sounds like the Kings are excited. They're happy. They got a he said a franchise-changing player, which that's high praise, man. What are your thoughts about that? Do you see the Sacramento Kings as the winners here?
I don't. I feel Halliburton. Sabonis is the best player in the trade right now. Like today, he's a better player than Halliburton.
Right.
But I think even by next year, Halliburton will be the better player.
Wow.
Because I was looking at his statistics in 13 games this year when De'Aaron Fox was out of the lineup. Halliburton averaged 19.5 points per game, 9.7 assists to 3.5 turnovers and 4 rebounds. Which there aren't a lot of guys in the league that can give you 20 points and 10 assists. There's like 4 of those guys in the whole league. Whereas, Sabonis, there's a lot of inside players like that. He's a very good passer himself, but I just think Halliburton has a very modern skill set and will be easier to build around in Indiana. And that's how Indiana wants to build it. So,
I'm sorry. It's funny. Originally, it was always said that when you talk about the winner of the trade, you just ask who got the best player. But that is a little short-sighted, right? Because you're absolutely right. I think the best player right now is Sabonis, hands down. But if you look at the life of this trade over, you really won't know who won it for another couple of years, which is why I asked you, who wins the trade in 5 years. This is really going to age me, but Elton Brand was traded for now I can't remember his name. Tyson, the center.
Tyson Chandler. As a rookie, he hadn't even played a game, and Elton Brand was traded for Tyson Chandler. And obviously, Elton Brand was the better player, but they asked Elton Brand about his thoughts on the trade. And he said, this Tyson Chandler kid's going to be amazing. So we just don't know. Now, I think at the end of the day, that was still a win for the Clippers, who ended up getting Elton Brand, because Tyson Chandler never really became, I think, better. But the point is, you can't judge a trade based on the day of the trade. You just can't. You're absolutely right. And for you to say Tyrese Halliburton might be better next season is wild, but plausible. Steve, what do you think?
I kind of like I like Sabonis. I think he's a very good player, an all-star for a couple of years. But I think the bigger issue for Sacramento is there's a culture change they need. It's a bad stigma on the franchise. I've always liked watching them, and I like some of their play. And I think they have some talent. However, it just seems A, they don't want to defend. B, they're not together. It's just the same old song every year. And I think the more guys you begin to ship out and you begin to change it, I think that's how it change. How they will ultimately improve. I think in the same way, and you researched Indiana, I think in the same way, Carlisle came in, those guys aren't his players, and he needs to change a culture and slowly, run some guys out, which they've done so far with LeVert and Sabonis leaving. But I think both franchises need some change to get them in the right track.
Yeah, that's one thing Tom said, before he had to drop. He talked about changing the culture in Sacramento, which absolutely has to be done. That team has not had a great history. And when you look at the history of really bad teams, there is no worse franchise than the Los Angeles Clippers. They were voted the #1 worst franchise by SI. This was years ago. But you take a look at what can happen. It takes time, right? It takes time, but you can change the culture. Right now, the Clippers are a destination. Now, they have the advantage of being in LA. It certainly helps. But they were in LA 20 years ago. Nobody wanted to come. Now you can see the change. And if this is the start of them trying to change that perspective in Sacramento, I'm all for it. I think that's awesome, because I really love that fan base, and hope that team works out for them. Let me ask you guys this, Akeem and Steve, and then we're going to drop for about 10 minutes before we talk Los Angeles Clippers and their big trade. Tom, and I just got this little snippet, man. I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth, Tom, but Tom, I think, said play-in. That's a great goal. And I don't have I don't have the standings in front of me, but I would think right now they're about the 12th position or so. Do you think the Sacramento Kings now are, they'd have to bounce over, if they are at 12, whoever's at 11, they'd have to bounce over the Pelicans, potentially get over the Lakers, right? And then you're right in the heat of the play-in. Do you think that's possible for the Kings? Akeem, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think it's possible. It really depends how quickly they can fit Sabonis in. And, when I watch him play, he's a very fiery guy. So on court, it appears that he has some leadership qualities about him. And it seems like the Kings have needed a leader for a while. Yeah. So maybe that will inject some energy into the team, and down the stretch, they'll play better. But New Orleans also got better. LA might start playing better if they change some things. Who knows? If AD stays healthy, they're going to be better. So It's going to be pretty tough to get in front of those two teams.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the Kings are right now at 13, half a game behind the Spurs for 12. They're 2 games behind the Pelicans at 11, and the Blazers at 10. So yeah, they're there. I think the Blazers will probably dip. The Pelicans, like you said, got better. The Spurs, you never count them out. But yeah, when I look at this, I think there's something to that, Tom. That might very well happen. Steve, what do you think? Do you think the play-in is a possibility for the Kings?
Yeah, I do. But I think the bigger, and it would be a great thing for Sacramento to get into a playing game and so on. But I think the bigger picture, when you make a trade or do anything, does this bring you closer? And maybe I'm way ahead of myself, but does this bring you closer to winning the whole thing?
Yeah.
And because if you're in it just to get into a playing game, what are you doing? So Sabonis is good. You put him in the top 25 in the NBA? No, I don't. So is he going to bring you to even the Final Four in your division in the West? I don't think so. Right. So what I'm saying is, with every step you make, you're trying to move it closer to getting near the ring. And, it's going to take a while, but that's how I kind of look at situations.
Yeah. No, it's a fair point. And again, I haven't known Tom long, but we had a great Kings contributor last season, Ryan. Ryan, if you're listening or watching, we miss you. I'll put on my Kings correspondent hat right now and say that while this is not going to change anything in terms of our ability to win a championship, this moves the needle closer to that end goal because we're changing our culture. And that's what I think this is. This is really, the long game as opposed to the short game. Tom is back. Tom, we're bringing you in. How are you?
Guys, I'm so sorry. I had full bars, but I think they're putting a lot of new internet up in Sacramento. And so I apologize for that. But just like the Sacramento Kings, we're a little bit late to the party. So
no worries. I think we encapsulated. We might have put some words in your mouth. Let me ask you this, Tom, because this is the one area I wasn't sure if I caught right, but we just asked this question of Steve and Akeem. They're contributors with the Peach Basket. And I want to make sure I heard you right. Right now in Sacramento, after this trade, do you see the play-in as a viable option for this team?
100%. Yeah, I think that's the goal. That's what GM Monty McNair stated today in his press conference. There was only a little bit of wavering during that. I think maybe time period when there were some rumors for a Fox trade a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, I think the plan's always been the quote unquote goal. I always think back to a couple years ago, the year before the play-in. It was when I think Dave Yeager was coaching the Kings. They were about 9 games out of the 8th seed, but they played the Warriors the last game of the year. And Draymond Green said afterwards, after they beat the Warriors in the last game of the year, they said Draymond was like, "Man, I don't want to play these Kings in a 5 or 7 game series. They're going to be tough to beat." And so I think that. Even though the national narrative on the Kings is a little skewed, I think that's always been the goal, is the play-in. And if we get that one game, I mean, anything can happen in that one game. We've beaten some of the best teams in the NBA. We've lost to some of the worst teams in the NBA. And so I think that just having that one game and then the next kind of play-in, 2 out of 3 will be a big goal for those Sacramento Kings and keep them on the right path towards their playoff hopes in the next few years. I mean, it's been since 05-06 since we've made the playoffs. Rick Adelman was our coach back then. Kenny Thomas was getting double-doubles for us. So, yeah, long time coming.
Let me have you address this. We've got 10 minutes before we switch to Clippers, so let's take up about 5 of them. I wanted to get your thoughts on this. When I looked at the Sabonis trade, I liked it. I liked it a lot for the Kings. I love the fan base. I love what they're doing there. You talked about changing the culture. I think that's so important. I look at Sabonis as cut from the same mold as a Chris Webber. I'm not comparing the two at all. Chris Webber was, phenomenal basketball player. But when I think of who Chris Webber was for the Sacramento Kings, a forward who could shoot, who could distribute, who was exciting, I see that kind of potential in Sabonis. I don't think he'll ever get there, but he's cut from the same mold. What do you think?
I agree completely. And I think almost Sabonis, just like in biomechanical terms, is a better runner of the floor than Webber. Webber had that huge body. Webber was a huge guy.
Right.
And a little bit, he was able to use that body and run up the floor, pass, distribute. But I think that Sabonis's game is even more of that, fits what the Kings have been wanting to do. since the beginning of the Luke Walton era and after that with Alvin Gentry. They really want to run the floor, push the ball, and that's what's great about Domantas Sabonis. He can run that ball up the floor, distribute it, and he's, like I said before, he's averaging 5 assists a game as a big man.
Right.
That's pretty big time. And it's pretty good too that Justin Holiday came over. I saw a stat where I think maybe 32% of Sabonis's assists this year have gone to Justin Holiday. And so they spoke about how they were excited to come over as a group, a little bit easier to acclimate. But they were talking about running. They were talking about high IQ. I think that's one thing that this trade really added. Not to knock on Buddy Hield and Marvin Bagley, but honestly, 2 of the lowest IQ basketball players I've seen recently. That was just a big upgrade for the Kings.
Right.
Big upgrade. That's the national narrative. I heard a clip from Jalen and Jacoby on ESPN the other day. They were saying, a lot of people have been saying the Kings have been getting fleeced by this trade. But some people, Jalen Jacoby even mentioned that the league should look into this as like the Kings tanking too hard. And I was saying, man, wow, they haven't watched the Kings in years. Buddy Hield can stuff the stat sheet and people can not watch the games and see, oh yeah, man, he hit those threes. He's second behind Steph Curry. Right. But if you watch it, he just doesn't make great plays, made a lot of money. And I think this is just a great addition by subtraction. And it's all around a great thing for that play and push, and then hopefully a playoff berth. But if not, next year retooling for that playoff berth. So
I think, and again, I don't want to speak for the national media, but I think the general consensus there is just giving up on Tyrese Halliburton this early. Do you think it was a situation where you got to give up something to get something? I mean, you're not going to get an all-star without giving up somebody who has that potential. That's just not how the game works. Or did the Kings give up on Tyrese Halliburton too early?
I think Tyrese Halliburton, like I said before, is going to be a future all-star and a pivotal member of a playoff team. But like I said before as well, the Kings had a great problem in having too many good point guards. And I think too that like maybe they could have traded De'Aaron Fox and not put in Buddy Hield into that trade. But I think honestly, the biggest part of that trade was getting rid of Buddy Hield, getting a new change of scenery. And I think that if you had to choose between the two, I was on the fence too, man. I love Halliburton. He loved the Sacramento Kings. He loved that fan base. You could tell he said that he was pretty ticked off and a little surprised when he got traded, which is, he's a 21-year-old dude. I'd probably think the same thing. But yeah, I think that we were in a tough spot, but watching the Kings play this year and having Halliburton and Fox on the floor at the same time, it's just their first year together, or, 1.5 years, but they really didn't mesh all that well. I think that I saw where Tyrese Halliburton had like just right under 300 assists on the year, and only like 30 of them were to De'Aaron Fox. And so just with the flow of the offense and how the team is built, I think that adding Sabonis next to Fox is just so huge. And having to give up Halliburton is unfortunate, but being able to get rid of Buddy Hield and Tristan Thompson along with that would be better to me. The question I've posed to people is, would you rather have traded Fox straight up for Sabonis, Holiday, and Lamb, or the trade that we did? And I think for right now and for the future, this fits us better. So, and I think also having Davion Mitchell, who was the 9th overall pick this year out of Baylor, won a state championship in high school with Georgia, won a national championship, defensive player of the year, and also won a summer league championship with the Kings. He's going to turn into a great NBA, role player, can defend 1 through 3, even some 4 guys out there. So I'd say keep your eye on them. And I think that the duo of Mitchell and Fox kind of interspersing each other will be a little bit better now and later than Halliburton and Mitchell. But it's tough to see Mitchell or Halliburton go, one of my favorite players on the Kings. But I think it was one of those things where you got to take advantage of the situation while you have it. And I mean, Landon, Sabonis, Holiday, and Lamb, pretty big time. So, yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to defer. I'm going to give the last word to Akeem and Steve. If you guys got a final question, we've got probably just about 2 more minutes. Steve, go ahead.
Well, I'm curious. And what I read, there was a lot of rumor that Julius Randle was going to be traded for Fox. What was the reaction out in Sacramento to that rumor?
I would say that was a mixed reaction for sure. The Sabonis trade has gone over a lot better than the reaction to the Randall for Fox trade. A lot of people stated that we didn't need another guy who was, making a scene on the sideline, like kind of came out the last couple of days with Julius Randle kind of disregarding an assistant coach on the sidelines and being a little disrespectful. And I think too, the age thing kind of comes in. And I mean, if that trade's out there that we got, I mean, Sabonis I think he just fits in so well with the Sacramento Kings and what we got going on right now. I think that Monte McNair really was getting a lot of hate from the Kings fan base, saying that he hasn't done anything since he's been here. And he really changed the franchise with these two trades, with the Sabonis trade and then also trading Bagley out. So I think that the fan reaction to the Julius Randle trade was they wanted some change, but I think overall they were the rabid and sometimes a little overzealous Kings fan base even was a little skeptical on that trade, which kind of surprised me a little bit. But that was a great question right there.
Right on. Hakeem, the last word's yours.
Tom, how do you feel about Fox and Sabonis fit together in terms of their playing style?
Oh, I think they fit together very well. Dribble handoffs. Sabonis is a good passer and can kind of create his own shot. So I think that they'll be able to space the floor well. And I think one of the biggest things that the Kings have talked about since like the Dave Yeager days in 2018-19 has been run. And Justin Holiday was talking about it in his post-game press conference last night. He was saying, we're going to be able to run right here. And Alvin Gentry has shown over his coaching career that he likes to play with fast pace. And he coached Justin Holiday back in the Warriors days when Justin Holiday was a young Warrior. And so I think that they'll fit well on the fast break and in the half-court offense. And, I mean, there is this great photo of them, Fox and Sabonis, embracing after the game. And it just looked like Fox finally was like, man, I finally got someone in Sacramento who can help me out, like a veteran guy who who can be the all-star on the Kings when everyone wants De'Aaron Fox to be that all-star and whatnot. So I think it's taken a lot of pressure off Fox and given him a tool in a 4-5 guy that they didn't have before, where Halliburton's a great player and is going to be a better player, but he didn't fit that need of having a non-guard star, if you will. So I think that
it's a bit redundant.
Exactly. A good problem to have, but a bit redundant. So I think it really spaces out the floor, gives them a lot more options on offense and defense as well.
Do you think they'll play Sabonis at the 4 or the 5?
I think it's a lot going to be dictated on what the other team does. I don't think the Kings quite have that reputation or the roster to make other teams change their lineup for what the Kings put on the floor. But I think the Kings have a good array of, Rashawn Holmes was one of the better pick and roll scorers in the lane last year and had a really high field goal percentage. So I think him coming off the bench and whatever they need to do per the other team's lineup, whether he's playing the 4, whether Sabonis is playing the 4 in a smaller lineup, or playing the 4 in a bigger lineup, or playing the 5 in a smaller lineup, I think the Kings can match up well, and if needed, they can dictate what the other team's going to be putting on the floor. So I think it's going to give them a lot of options.
Outstanding. Great recap. Outstanding. Just really fun talking to you, Tom. I'm glad we were able to connect. You can find Tom at Sacktown Crown on Twitter. And forgive me for ending this kind of abruptly, but Jack is with us. It's time to talk Los Angeles Clippers basketball. So, Tom, I appreciate you at the time.
The voice of the fan. Drop a bounce pass, throw down the rim rocker. Lay up off the glass right past the shot blocker. I follow through like Kobe's is money. You can cash it. For news on LA hoops, come over to Beach Basket.